Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. This is dev stream number 3, I think, of Steam Workshop for Sentinels of the Multiverse. I'm John, lead developer at Handelabra. We're going to continue on with some prototyping and stuff today. We're going to put out that template thing, so that's cool. So yesterday we put out an update to Sentinels. Pull up the text of the update. Just a basically bug fix, primarily update. Ooh, good luck, Dorito. Thank you. With some bug fixes and also that very preliminary low-level support for mod creators. So basically the stuff that we showed last week around having the engine be able to load up your code. So that is out now in Steam. On Steam? Increase the font here for everyone. So what I want to do is make sure that all works in my mod here and get this up on the internet for you to download it and maybe improve it a little bit too. So that's in the Trello board here. That's still finishing up this. The last step that's been published. We're going to just add a sort of rough documentation and example here, post that up to the public. Could go on any number of places, but GitHub seems to be probably the most popular place for things like that to go, or GitHub, as some like to say. So that's going to be the first thing we do today. Then we'll go back to looking at some of the visual graphics prototyping stuff. Right, in this support code, I want to include some of that as well. So let's look at doing that. I did notice some people in the Discord were chatting. There is actually already people making some mod codes, posting them up to GitHub. If you search for multiverse, you find other stuff, but there's a couple different people creating Cauldron stuff. So Megaman 520 and SOTM Steam mods, I would suggest you get together and work together instead of, you haven't been duplicating work here because they're different decks, but probably a good idea to coordinate efforts on that sort of thing. I recommend our Discord channel. There's also the Board Game Geek variants sub-forum is very active. Probably would be good to get together and coordinate on working on that stuff so you don't end up duplicating each other's work. These folks have been working without the support that I've been putting together, but hopefully you'll be able to benefit from it shortly as well. So cool. So just going to close those tabs up, I guess. So I think last time I updated these references to point to the actual DLL in Steam here. And I think it didn't work, right? Or I don't remember what happened. But it wouldn't have worked in the previous DLL. But it should now. So let's just make sure everything's built. We can actually go and delete those old references too. We can run all the one test. So that all passed. Exciting. That all happened. Let me just go. I don't know. Can you erase these from this list? We have to edit the project file. Visual Studio. Prune references list. Maybe. Hey, it's time for the dev stream. Remove unused references. I don't want, if they're going to be in the file when people download it, I don't want them to be wrong. I'm fine if it's is there an X? Oh, there's an X, but I can't click it. this. Oh. Yeah, what if I just open the project file in like, or is it, it's probably in this project file, not in the solution file, but we can take a peek at the solution file. It's just a text file. All right, not in here. I guess it's just something that's coming from the Visual Studio local config or something, because it's not showing up in the files. So that's fine, I guess. We'll just bother me and me alone. And also you, because it's going to show the old paths in yours. Preferences? Not a huge deal. Sources? We could make a NuGet package for this stuff too. That seems like a lot of extra work. Maybe someday. All right, anyways. So this is all working, which is cool. Basically, I wanted to add some of our support code. Like we just put in like a bunch of empty stuff here that isn't going to do anything. Like you're not going to be able to like actually have tests that do stuff. So I was thinking about it, and like we basically have like, let's open a new instance of this. We have a test framework that we use for all of our stuff. So I can show you that and like probably just include it, because that would be some, like essentially you just have to make that again. So why don't we just give it to you? Same thing for the console, like the command line interface. Like if we don't publish it, someone's just going to make it like anyways. So, and it's going to be the same. So why, you know, not just post that up? Because it's not like super important secret code. So let's look at the test stuff first, because I want to encourage unit testing, because it's a good thing. So let's go to like a more modern test, like Champion Studios. So like, that's a pretty complicated one. Card chase scene. Here you go. So card chase scene says, so this is a test for this card. We have a little helper function to just start a new game. We have a helper function to play a card, so you can just play a card. There's actually many different versions and overloads of this to do different things. We're going to play these two cards. The effect is that melee damage convert to projectile damage. So we can make sure that... Right. So this line here is saying we're going to use Next Evolution's power, and we're going to choose melee. And so Legacy is immune to melee damage. So Baron Blade is going to deal melee damage to Legacy, but it's converted to projectile, so it actually gets through. So we have these helpers, quick HP storage, where you can say, record the hit points of these cards or characters or whatever. There's a couple versions of it. And then quick HP check says, you know, make sure that Baron's hasn't changed. Legacy's minus 11 because of Nemesis bonus. The other two haven't changed. Helper to set the hit points of a card, update the stuff that's being stored in these things, and then see that, you know, when Wraith deals damage to reduce Legacy to 2 or fewer HP, that null means it's destroyed. So this is like sort of probably, yeah, it's not documented enough as it should be for us to publish it, but I'm going to publish it anyways, so you can start looking at it, and it's something that we'll want to document. And if you don't want to use it, you want to make your own test harness, like, go for it. But I think it's going to be useful for people to have that, right? Swaggertown would like to look at Twist the Ether. Sure. We can take a quick look at Twist the Ether in the context of a test. So Twist the Ether is one of the more complicated cards in the game. It has to, yeah, it's pretty complicated. So When you play it, it doesn't do anything. There's no play method. Like one-shots typically will have a play method, but it has add triggers. So whenever a card has triggered effects, you have to override add triggers, which the game calls at the right time, because there's a certain moment when that gets called, different moment than play. Like, for example, Inspiring Presence has add triggers and play. Add triggers happens first, and then play. So this is what in the old-timey parlance of people talking about Sentinels would be static effects, basically ongoing effects are in play as soon as the card text is in play. So they're the first thing that happens is the triggers. The actual effect of when this card enters play, which is also what one-shots do, comes later. So if something regains hit points, say the Scholar, he gets the +1 damage from this. The ordering of that is important. So Twist the Ether does complicated things. It says whenever the target would deal damage, you may change the damage type, you may increase it or reduce it. And also if the target leaves play, destroy this card. So the first one, we're adding a trigger for changing the damage type. So adding a trigger is a base method that you have access to that just sets up the trigger. And there's various types of triggers that work on different types of actions. A lot of them have like helper functions. Like there's something like add reduce damage trigger. So you don't have to like create the object, you just call this helper method to do it. You can still create the object if you have something more complicated, but normally it's just like Inspiring Presence, right? Add increased damage trigger if it's a hero by 1. That's it. There's nothing fancy about it. But you could have, the trigger, if you need to run code on that, you could have a more complicated call here to have it run code, which is what Twist the Ether does. It checks to see, is the damage coming from the card that's next to this card? If so, we have to call this method. And this is a method on this card. Is it? No, it's a helper method. Because this thing, select damage type for deal damage action, happens. There's more than one card that does this. So it's something that, like, I guess there's Chrono Ranger can do this, right? And a few other things can do it. So that's why it's a helper method. And that basically asks the user what's the damage type and then comes back. And that all handles changing the damage type and everything. So that's all in there. Modifying the damage amount is something that I think pretty much only Twist the Ether does. So I think that code is in here. So whenever the deal damage action happens, again, it's another trigger, but it happens after. So it's after the other one. We have the code in the card controller that will modify the damage. We have a whole thing called pretend mode, which is used for the damage preview. When you're like choosing a target, you can see what the damage would be. Basically, when the engine is doing that, it's like running all the code, but it has a flag that says this isn't really happening, so don't actually change the game. But we want to find out what happens. So it actually runs all the code up to, like, if there's a decision that the user needs to make that we can't tell what they might say, it just, like, stops and says we can't go any further in the preview. So that's pretty complicated. So if you're doing stuff like this, you might have to get into that, and that's something we'll document later. So yeah, there's a lot there. But basically, what this does is has the player choose between functions. There's 2 buttons. One of them says increase by 1, one of them says reduce by 1. If you click the first one, it calls the increase function. If you click the second one, it calls the reduce function. Grease Monkey Fist. Yeah. Is another one that is selecting damage type. So that's a fairly common thing. Not super common, but it's common enough that there's a helper function to do that. But this particular thing, there's no other card that does this besides Twist the Ether. If there was, we would make a helper for it. But it's fine for Twist the Ether to just do this on its own. And that's an example. Whenever like people ask, "Can I do this? Can I do this?" It's programming. You can do anything. So just because there isn't like a helper function to do the weird thing you want to do doesn't mean you can't do it. Like this weird thing that Twist the Ether is doing. And also, Twist the Ether, you have to decide where it gets played to. That's a special thing. If you override this method, you can do that. Or maybe it automatically goes, like Blue Go automatically goes to a certain target, for example. And then this is a helper, a very verbose function. Add if the target that this card is next to leaves play, destroy this card trigger, which adds a trigger like that, which is a very common thing. And this actually has a documentation that is correct. So yeah. Yep, you can create your own functions, not use the only ones that are existing. Definitely. Yeah, and if we were not allowing you to, or supporting doing the full code method like this, it might be more limited, which is one reason we wanted to do it this way, so that you can do it whatever you want when you're making your mod. All right, so back to this. So basically we want to provide this test framework, because that's going to really help. And this is all this base test. It's a huge file, but it's basically all of these properties you can set that, the next decision, use this answer. So I'm going to basically put this file in and see what happens. So let's go. And then we might have to modify it a little bit, but let's put it in to this. And ideally, this is probably like a NuGet package or something that you can, like a DLL that you can add. That'll be easier for us to keep it updated or whatever. But for this, it's just going to be this. So let's add a file. Copy it. All right, base test. Let's just put this in the same namespace. Maybe that's... What if we just say that this is using it? Maybe that's better. And we say this is a base test. It's going to be like, OMG, you can't hide those inherited members. Right, so... actually, before I get too far into this, let's commit the code that we have already. I don't know if I've even made a commit for this yet. Is there a Git repository? We're just sort of noodling around. I'm not sure if I think this is a good point to make it, if it's not. My mod? It is not. Get in it. All right. What's a good git ignore file? Visual Studio git ignore. This all seem... It's a lot. Is there an official GitHub collection of useful ignore templates? That seems good. Can I just, give me all of it. All right, let's go to my Git GUI, which I prefer. Projects. My mod. All right. Let's see what it adds when now that we got the ignore file. Right, so I don't actually, let's just delete the base test out of here first, because Just want to commit what we've got first. Swaggertown asks, whereas choosing which effect occurs first is handling that. There's actually an entire trigger manager in the engine that is in charge of deciding that. It's pretty complicated, and basically it's mainly set up so the cards themselves don't have to worry about it, and everything works according to the rules of the game. There are some things you can pass, like you can say the timing of the trigger. Do you want it to be before or after the thing happening? So like typically triggers on damage happen before. Well, sometimes things that change the damage have to happen before because they need to change it before it's done. Whereas something like, whenever you're dealt damage, you react, like combat stance, that is timing after, right? So there's different ways. And yeah, this is a trigger on, I don't know. If you want to ask details about how the trigger stuff works, you need to talk to Jean-Marc. Especially with complicated ones like that. But normally you can use the helpers, like add increased damage trigger. If that's all you want to do, like it automatically knows how to deal with that unless you need to like override it. For example, there's some weird cases, but that's generally the cards don't need to worry about it unless you're doing something really weird, and then you need to get into it. But you shouldn't have to do that for most cases. All right, so let's just commit what we've got here as our initial commit. We just didn't put any of these in Git because I didn't even know if we were going to save it. Add initial files in project. Sure. Then we can have a commit to add the base test file. All right, so let's add file again. Base test, copy the file. And I think I'd rather like have it use it like this instead of like ideally if we update this, you just like drop in the new version or whatever. You shouldn't have to change this file unless you're like improving it or whatever. Then we'll just delete stuff out of it that I don't know. Maybe we'll change that, but that's what I'm thinking about right now. So we don't need like these because these are all implemented in the other thing. This is as well, right? Yeah. Like I copied these things out of here before, right? So these are like, all this stuff is just go away. And this too. Just all you should have is your tests, right? So I'm getting some errors over here. So let's see what we got. Probably missing some related files. Yeah, so this mock achievement server, this has to do with achievement tests. This isn't something that's going to be related for mods at all. So I'm just going to delete that and we'll fix up any errors that come from that. And we could actually refactor that out in our own code to not be part of this file, but like we don't need these achievements things, right? Like those aren't going to be a thing that's related to mod stuff. So that can just be erased. And right. There's some like basic assertions, like these are like things that, yeah, there's some things that get asserted in here that's like the game rules work this way, and so that shouldn't happen. But if you need to change it for your cards that are breaking the rules, then maybe. All right, so that's all running, or compiling. Let's run the test now and see if... Right, and what I want to do is have, this is the code that's like telling the game where our mods are. I want that to be like, isn't there like a setup fixture for all the text fixtures? Yeah. This is before each test is run. So we want this plug void like register assembly. It's only valid. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Okay. What we need to do is make a new file. Add new file. Empty class. We'll call it like setup. And we'll give it that decoration and all that stuff. Basically, we can just, this can have a thing that runs first. Fixture. Right, we have to go using NUnit or whatever. This. Right, setup fixture. And one-time setup attribute. Right. What? Oh, right. Void. Do setup. I don't know. There's probably a naming convention people use for this. So we don't want that in here. So that's going to be this stuff. Basically, tell the engine about our mod assembly so it can load up our code. And we need system typing, reflection, and model. And we need to be using, I wonder if there's a better way instead of like using, what is it? My mod? Oh, workshopping, right. .migrant coder. I don't know if there's like get the assembly. Like I don't want executing something, that's going to be the test. I have to pass a type. So it has to be some type, right? I guess so. It doesn't matter which type. It doesn't matter which type as long as it comes from the mods assembly. Cool. Okay. So that's something that you can like replace with your own values here, right? Replace with your own type and replace with your own namespace. Cool. So that means this should still work because it's supposed to run this every time we start running tests, but just once. Cool. And I've been having an issue where it doesn't always actually run the changes in my test. So right. So now we can, instead of some of these funny things, we can do like bag equals play card punching bag. But this makes the test much nicer. And we can do the quick HP storage migrant. And we can say quick HP check whatever the card does. -1. Punching bag does self 1 damage. We don't even need to keep a reference to that, do we? And we can do play card, worst card ever, which doesn't do anything, I guess. And we can go use power, migrant.character card. And we can do quick hand storage migrant. Quick hand check 3 because it draws 3 cards. And we'll move these into their own test. Our base power draws 3 cards. Bay power. Right, what does this need to take? A hero turn taker. So there's this little 2 hero you can use, or you can do a regular cast, whatever you like. Alright, that seems good. So let's bust these into actually separate tests, which is a better way to do it than one. So let's do like, just like test mod works, and that's like this. And we'll add test punching bag. We don't need to like do this stuff or this stuff. And then this one is test worst card ever. I mean, name these methods whatever you like. Do your testing however you like, but we like to at least set some sort of example. Right, and one thing you might want to do is like make your own base test class that's in between your test, like so that you have, like say, like we have in the base test a bunch of, we'll go through it. We have a bunch of like, you can type like legacy and it's like a helper property that looks up legacy, right? So you can do like protected hero turn taker controller. Game controller to find turn taker controller. I'll find hero turn taker controller even. Did I do it wrong? Oh, return. You might be wondering, why don't I use a modern C# thing? Because Sentinels is on old C#. Exactly. Oh. Let's do this. Why? This is like the method. Oh, right, and we have to go. And we don't need to make this variable. We can just use the local property. Right, we don't want to run this again. This is all that's right. So now we have 3 tests that do 3 different things. So the first test, just test to see, does the mod code get loaded? The next test, right, we're not, right, that's fine. We don't need to keep these variable in these. This test punching bag, this test the base power. Just to give an example, like, you don't want to have this one giant test, right? That has everything in it. That's very hard to manage. Even like you want your test to be pretty short because it's hard to debug problems if a lot of stuff is going on. Keep it snappy. That's what I'm saying. All right, so we don't actually need reflection and stuff in this thing anymore, because that's in the setup code here. Cool. All right, so let's just take a look at the base test and see if we need everything in there or like what's in it. I just want to like have a sanity check on this. Right, so we don't need this. Right, promo card unlocking is not going to be a thing, so I don't really need that. It's not like the end of the world if these methods are here, I guess. Trident 42, is it easy to test a pair of cards meant to work together in succession? Yep. Like we have a lot of tests that are about interactions between cards, right? Like what happens with, yeah, I'm that guy, and every other card. Like there's tests that deal with that, and that would be, there'd be a test. Like you have a sandbox here, right? You can set up a game with whatever decks you want. You can set up whatever you want. Like you can control everything about what happens in the game, whatever decisions happen. In there, I should probably have an example of something that like has a decision. Maybe we'll add that before we finish this. So I might get rid of this promo unlock stuff. That's not really relevant. Anyways, it's not the end of the world to leave it in here. It doesn't really do much. So all these properties here are whenever the game progresses. So it's probably good to like make a card that does something like that, right? That has a decision. Let's just change. Well, yeah. Let's make a new card. Make a new card. Change this card. Just make this card. Just make our base power draw 3 cards and do damage, right? Draw 3 cards. Migrant. Coder. Deals 1 target 2 psychic damage. Let's just change the power to do that because I'm psychic. So on the power character card controller, we will do this. So deal 2 psychic damage. So there's a deal damage. This is like one of the most basic things. But we're not choosing a target here, right? There's one, I think, that is select target and deal damage. Select target and deal multiple instances. Maybe it's another version of deal damage. Show me your versions. Sources, target criteria. Right, okay, target criteria is what we want. So you can say like non-hero targets, right? Or targets whose name end in Y or whatever you want. So the source is going to be this card because it's the character card. I guess we want to use character card because guys, it might be this card might be replaced by guys. So if you always use the property character card, it gets replaced by guys properly. The target is, I don't know if it works just past null. Damage is 1. It is psychic damage. That's it. And sometimes we just like make an E and then we can just reuse it. It might be like it's ambiguous, right? Because there's, so what's something that does like, let's go back to the engine here, an example of like Thok. All right, select targets and deal damage. So even if it's just 1, that's the method you're supposed to use. Deal damage is like if there's not a decision involved, like deal all of these targets damage. So that's what that method's for. Right, we're in the wrong place. This is why we need documentation. Select targets and deal damage. And I think we have to call that on game controller. A lot of the helpers are on game controller because it avoids having too many coroutine executions which cost a frame. Select target and deal damage. Yeah. The hero is, I think we want to use decision maker. Yeah, that's typically what we put here. The damage source is, we make like a new damage source instance. Yeah, I'm just gonna copy this. There's a dynamic like X version, and there's the fixed value version. The amount is just 2, damage type psychic, and 1 target. And it's not optional. He does have to do it. There's 1 required target. It might be like deal up to so many targets, or may deal damage. There's different ways things can be written. All right, so if we go ahead and run this when we use the power, it's going to do something. All right, this actually isn't test worst card ever. It's test innate power. Right? Worst card ever doesn't do anything. That's why it's the worst. All right, we got a null reference. Interesting. Oh. Because of this? No, that doesn't make sense. I think we didn't provide a target, but it's just the test should still go. Why is there a null reference in the game controller? Select targets and deal damage. Oh, am I calling it wrong? Create decision, select targets / none. What does legacies do? Oh, I didn't provide the card source. I guess I need to do that. Which is usually this, but guys, that's the null reference. Yeah, okay. So the test code, the base test will just like, if you didn't decide, like if you didn't provide a target, it's just going to be like, well, I'll pick one, so that the tests at least do something. So it makes a decision for choosing a target. It calls the make decisions on the base test, and the base test is just like, well, I guess I'll pick the first one. So we can like choose a different target. We can say, because so as soon as you call use power, like after this, all of the things that happen with the power have happened. Deals 1 target 2 damage. So you have to like prepare everything in terms of the decisions that might come out of that in advance. So let's go MDP equals find mobile defense platform. Find card. Mobile defense platform. Get card in play. Yeah. So the MDP, we can target that. And we say, you can use, there's a function, select target. Select decision select target is MDP. And there's like a version of this for multiple targets and stuff. There's like lots of different things you can do. And all that, you'll be able to see all that code and everything. And then so we can store the quick HP storage of the NDP. So this all needs to be done before use power gets called. Let's like break it up like that. So then afterwards we can check, did we have the right number of cards in hand? Does the MDP have the right number of hit points? So the MDP should be at -2. Fosuke thinks that the code can't handle something. There's already ways to replace character cards in the game, so I would not assume that anything cannot be handled because you can program whatever you want. All right, so yeah, MDP gets targeted and is at 8 hit points. Test successful. So that's a test that actually has a decision, right? You can also like go to different phases. We can say like go to use power phase. and it will go there. It will like run any start and end of turn actions because those are triggers as well. So if we run this and look at what happened in that test, you can see it goes through Baron Blade's turn. The villain doesn't automatically play cards as a trigger based. That's something that'll handle a little differently in Sentinels because of just how the game works a little differently. Basically, whenever it goes to the villain play card phase, the UI like makes the villain play a card for reasons that I'm not going to get into. It's complicated. We basically just need to have quiet periods in the game where we can save safely. So we go through to Migrant's use power phase as an example here. All right, so let's go just take a quick look again at this. Let's go back into here and just make sure this is all sane and okay to post. So these are all properties you can set. The make decisions code. All this is internally, like this is all used inside it. Like I added this one file, right? So we're not like doing anything super complicated. All this is stuff that can be used by things that subclass from this. You can like, these are all the things that you can decide in a game of Sentinels. Like what target do I damage? Which incapability do I use? What is if there are ambiguous choices, which card goes first? Which power to use? Where do I move the card? Who gains hit points? Like so many things. Then there's a lot of things are just like for tracking internally. That's why they're all private, not protected. Yeah, I mean, anything is possible because you can program. These are little helpers for all the existing content, all the heroes and all the villains and all the team villains and Oblivion stuff. The environment is just env because it's just the environment. In Oblivion, there are two environments. So there's env1 and env2, Battlezone 1, Battlezone 2, and the Scions and stuff. So these are just like very simple helpers, so you don't have to be typing this all the time, right? Oh yeah, find hero. That's the method I should be using. Find hero. Cool. Okay. So yeah, more private stuff. We have a setup and teardown that this code runs before every test and after every test. Oh yeah, on Team City. This is like an internal. We use Team City for. I mean, sure, if you want to use Team City for continuous integration of your mods, like, go for it. That won't affect you. It doesn't have any sort of external or like secret codes or anything like that. If it's running on Team City, it will add some test metadata for you automatically. So let's go back to, yeah. So init and finish are just making sure things are good. Yeah, I didn't actually program guys in Stunman, but I've looked at them. Okay, so yeah, reset decisions is a way that you can, I think it's called automatically, but you can call it if you want to like have multiple games in one test. You can do this, but I recommend not doing that. Just have one. Each test should test one thing, ideally. This setup game controller, yeah, you can actually call this directly. So I should probably use this as the example, right? We should like call setup game controller, and you can actually just pass it literally if you want the simplest form. There, just the like, right? There are more versions of that method that are more complicated. Like you can make it advanced. You can do lots of stuff. We might not actually need to call start game anymore if we call this version. Let me see. No, I think we still need to call start game. Start game runs like all of the setup for villain setup and things like that. There's some little shortcut in here to select a promo card instead of making a dictionary and all that. Yeah, so they're very simple. It's just like pass identifiers in. There's some functions to print out stuff. This is setting up all the event handlers. Cool. So yeah, so some of these are the event handlers, like the game is asking for the hero cards in the box, like for Oblivion. So we just return, basically this is returning all available heroes. So this might need to change if you want your, actually this is going to have to change, right? To handle showing mods, but this is at the test level, right? The UI would need to know to look at mods for available heroes and not just the ones that we know about, which are static, like these are the list of Sentinels decks that exist in official decks. Right, persistent values and views. These are things that you can save. This is used for like options, not options. I can't remember what this is used. This is, I think, for like tracking achievements and promo card unlocking and stuff. Because the engine doesn't know how to save files or anything like that. It just, the UI is in charge of that and storing data more permanently. Yeah, the coroutine running. We've talked about that a little bit. Make decisions. This is like a huge function. So you can either override this if you want to like have your own custom logic about making decisions, or you can set the properties. This uses all those properties that are up above to like be able to have your test do it. So if you want to do something else, you can do something else. Just like override it and don't do this. I'm not going to look through all this, but basically it's like using all those properties to make the decision when the decision comes in. And so if there's a new kind of decision, we'll update this basically. All right, we just scrolled past that. Make multiple decisions. Yeah, we just passed that again. Showing messages. So the engine can send a message which like pops up in the yellow box in the UI, but we show it in the testing methods here. And then here's all these convenience methods. This is like probably most of the rest of the file. Like play this card, put this card in your hand, like all kinds of different overrides, all kinds of different ways to call it. Starting the game. Sure, a weird fix about Unity. That's fine. Yeah, there's a helper function to just save the game and load the same game and make sure that it's the same, which can be a thing if you're not storing data correctly or doing something problematic that would fail. So that's the thing you can test. Right now, games don't load that have mods, so that won't work right now. You can go to a certain phase, but then there's all sorts of helpers that are like, go to the specific phase of this turn taker. Yeah, all the HP, like checking stuff, counting number of cards in play, finding cards, playing cards, and there's stuff for moving cards, dealing damage, discarding cards, destroying cards, using powers. Here's all the deal damage, gaining HP, flipping cards. Basically, all these things are like things you can do to manipulate the game state in the test, and then like play the card and make sure it does the right thing, or go to the start of the turn and make sure the trigger worked, or all sorts of things. We have tests to make sure the damage previews work properly, print them out so you can look at them. Yeah, some asserts that you can use in your test to make sure things are at certain hit points or cards are in play. Token pool checking, pick for setback and stuff, or the harpy. Oh, there's so much here. More asserts. Asserts this, assert that. Assert it's off to the side. Asserts in the trash. Asserts in under the card. Assert it's next to this card. This is all stuff you would need to make on your own if you wanted to make a thorough testing framework. So I think it's like very helpful to have this. It's a lot, and it's not documented well enough or at all, but it should be helpful. Oh my goodness, there's a lot here. Assert on top of the deck. Blah, insert on top of the trash. Remove projections, relics, minions, victims. Sure. These are all things to help for certain villain tests to just make sure the game state is reasonable. This is just like the... Oh, yes. John Mark, the Sentinels testing is massive. And this is just the thing that helps us make tests. If there's anything in here that you don't want me to put on GitHub, Jean-Marc, now is the time to tell me. Just this file, not putting like all our tests, just this framework file base test. Remove this stuff, find a villain team member, find the heroes. You can assert things about decisions that like, I should play this card and there should not be a decision. It should just happen without having to ask about it, which can be important. Assert that can't play cards, damage preview stuff, special strings, which are the information that you see when you bring up the full card. The additional information boxes there are called special strings. Powers and triggers and effects. Messages, you can assert that a message is going to show up, or several messages, or that a message won't show up as well. Promo cards, yeah, we'll just leave the promo card stuff. That's fine. Maybe we'll have promo cards in mods. I don't know. It's not doing anything anyways. More asserts. Stacking the deck after shuffling. That can be some tricky stuff to test. La 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 la. All right. Asserting hit points, loading and saving games. This is basically the code we use to load and save games, which isn't going to work right now with the mod stuff. The loading part, I mean, it'll save and then it won't be able to load because it won't be able to find the right code. But we'll get that working. There's a way to replay a game. The game actually stores the answer to every decision. So in theory, you should be able to open up the game, load a game, and have it replay from the start and get to the same spot, which can be helpful for like long sequences that are difficult to test manually or even automatic. You can have a save file and then replay it and make sure it gets to the right spot. Activatable abilities, more random things. Right, here's actual event handlers from the engine. Will perform action, did perform action. Game run does actions when everything changes, and so this is going to show a bunch of output for that. More promo card stuff, manipulation, helpers, more asserts. Oh, we're getting towards the end. Oh, we have timers, so you can time how long things are taking if you have a performance issue. Running the active turn phase. This is actually the bit I was talking about, where if it's play card and if it's like a villain or environment, it automatically plays the number of cards it's supposed to, and things like that. Heroes automatically will try to use a power if it's been specified, so on. Is the card equipment? Has Prime Warden's Adept been unlocked? I don't know why that's there. There's a reason we did this. Set up situations so Dynamic Siphon gets smoke bombed for things to happen. There are complicated things that can happen whenever heroes use powers in the middle of damage, so that's probably why that was around. And the good old do nothing. It's a good function as well. Okay, so Jean-Marc did not say anything about exposing this to the world, so we're going to do it. All right, so obviously you can only do this if Wraith and Captain Cosmic are in the game. It won't work otherwise. Okay, so we're going to add base test testing framework. All your banking information as an Easter egg. Nice. Yeah, this code doesn't have any like secrets. It's just a lot of like, if you make a game engine for 6 years and test it thoroughly, you end up with this sort of thing as part of it. And it probably, I mean, this is something we can certainly like add more documentation to. I think the priority is going to be documenting the actual engine, but we can certainly add, be working on adding documentation to this stuff, but it's mostly sensible, I think, at this level. All right, let's go and say add base test testing framework, make innate power have a decision for example purposes. Cool. Yeah, and I think that's just, reorganizing those tests as well. Okay, so that looks good. So I also wanted to add in the console thing. What time is it? 3 o'clock? I think that we can do that. So I showed it a little bit last week, right? The mega computer thing / interactive command line thing. So I think that is pretty useful to have, because at least when I'm developing stuff like this, I like to be able to like test it manually first, and not just rely on, and still do a unit test, but like being able to test it manually is helpful to like mess around before seeing if like a test is necessary or whatever. So we have this Sentinels console project, and so I'm going to put a version of this in as well. So we need to make a project. And it's a console project. My mod console. Very creative. And you get a program.cs that says hello world. And if you run it, you should get output. There's like an application output. Oh, right. How do I set a startup project? Hello world. I did a thing. Cool. And make sure this is real. We'll run it again. Make sure this is real. Okay. So as you can see, we also have program.cs, and we're going to basically put that in here so we can. So if I press play on this, does it work in Visual Studio? I don't know if I need to run it from a terminal. Could not. Yeah, I get this. Could not connect to the debugger, and then bad CPU type in executable. I don't know. Let's just try it. Maybe it's a project setting or something over here. So basically, I want to. Some of this code isn't going to be needed. Like there's stuff that we use for like reporting bugs to Trello and stuff like that from the mega computer that we don't need. So let's go scroll through this and clean it up. So I'm just going to copy and paste it and then go from there. Wow, that's a lot of red. Yeah. So we need these I think we don't need the JSON. We don't need, I don't know why there ever was XML. The random generator thing we need. And right, we need to add the references to the .NET assemblies from Steam. That should clear these. We need to add, there's a package. I don't know if it's listed. You're going to be listed here. random. It's a NuGet package, so I think I have to like go there somehow. I forget how to go there. This is a random number generator that we use for the mega computer because it's a little better than the one built in, or whatever. I don't know. There was another reason. Using directive is unnecessary. Is it though? Okay, let's just go from here and see. So this configure game for testing is, yeah. So I'm just going to like do this. Because this is all like, because our team shares this file, it's like if it's me or if it's David or Jean-Marc, there's like different setup. You can just like create any setup in this method is basically what that is doing. Set up a game how you want. Stack decks. So if you're like testing something and iterating on it, you can like set it up here. That's fine. And then there's a method to configure post game. That's fine. You can like choose whose turn it is. You could do that. You could say it's Legacy's turn. Do whatever you want after the game starts. Then we have some helper things here. A lot of this is going to be a little similar to the testing framework, but it's not quite exactly the same thing. Right. We need that. How do we get to NuGet packages? That's how we get to that. Trosh random. Yeah, I typed it. Okay. Add package. Work well. Hey, it stopped being red. All right, so that will like come down automatically when you load the project. Okay, so this is the configuration step. Like basically asks like, we have this get input, which will like print that out and wait for and return like whatever you typed in. So this whole sequence of like what villain, what environment, blah blah blah. Dot to int. Is that? Oh, I see. That's from engine common, so we'll say we're using that namespace. Oh, way less red now. That's probably because of that. Engine common stuff. Yeah, so this lets you choose your heroes and villains. Obviously, this is not going to work. This is for the interactive mode, the mega computer mode. It's not going to load your mod stuff in here. That's something that we can add maybe, or you can add. We'll see what we want to do. Oh, right. So we do need the JSON thing. And we can add Boom Lagoon. Is it JSON? Or was Boom Lagoon just like thrown in here? Was it Boom Lagoon JSON or Manatee JSON that it was using? Oh, I think we have that in the, it's actually in the engine DLL. It's a like open source JSON thing. Cool. Trello helper, right. So we're just gonna delete that stuff that has to do with Trello. Because that's not gonna be part of this. Replaying, loading and saving user data. This is like, that's for like, these are the persistent value stuff I was talking about. That's fine. Here's in the box. That's fine. Right. So the run loop. Right. So we're not doing mega computer mode. So I'm just going to like delete that line. User friendly is like the mega computer, easier to play mode. We got some special stuff for this. That seems fine. This is the run loop of like playing the game. check for newer version. That's not going to be necessary. Right, the notes. Isn't necessary. I'll just like find anything else that has to do with Trello or notes because those aren't really needed. This is running the phases. Saving your game, loading your game. Printing the menu. This is the debug menu, so the commands are interesting. Feel free to change that. JMG, this implementation is outdated. Okay. That's fine. These are helpers for like the things users is implementing or users are doing. Printing out stuff, showing messages, making decisions. This is actually very interesting because this is like very similar to what the UI shows for decisions. Like, do you want to destroy this card? Do you want to discard a card? All the different strings that can be shown for different things that can happen in Sentinels. So actually, this is something that like if your mod has new kinds of decisions that don't fit in how the game works, we'll need to figure that out because right now there's just the decision space that exists, and if you have like a new thing that's like, oh, this is an error because we have a version of 2 array for some reason in our code. Well, that's annoying. How do we fix that? What's this little X? Oh, I see. I think we need to say that we're on an earlier version of .NET right now. .NET Framework 4. Does that make these go away? Maybe. Maybe not. Could not locate the assembly net standard. Well, that's not good. All right, let's just go by these for now. This is all more decision handling. It's a lot. Why does this need to go to an array? We also don't need to be re-implementing .NET methods in our engine. Common. We can change those to toList, I guess. Probably they're just, or as enumerable. Right, this is all, we're not worried about the notes command here, so we're going to delete that. Load a game, save a game. This is the interactive stuff. It's more like playing it versus developing it. I think that's fine to leave that in here for you. Printing stats out. Printing things out. Getting strings. Printing things out. Printing things out. Printing things out. Menu. Right. We don't want the note command. Just going to get rid of that stuff because it's not going to work. Oh. I guess we do need the XML thing. Okay, we'll put that, I guess, because it's like, it's using that to figure out the evaluation of like h+2 and whatever. String manipulation. Press enter to continue. Press enter or cheat. Go ahead and cheat. All right, outputting crash note. Get rid of that. Outputting to notes. Get rid of that because we don't have the Trello stuff. I'm not sure what this is here for, so we'll just leave this. Checking for the newer version available, just returns false. I think, yeah, it was using this thing, but that's not used anymore. I'll comment it out. Okay. Let's put back that XML thing. And let's see where we are. Type or namespace XML does not exist. What? Do we need to add? Yeah, we need to add a reference to system.xml. That's okay. We just why is this coming up? System.core. Need that. Why is it .NET standard thing? I don't know where that's coming from. All right, errors. Calls ambiguous. Because our engine common thing has this, as well as system.link has this. Which is annoying. Can I remove this? Delete? Do we need that? What if we change this to to list? Like there's no need. Oh, right. Why do we need to make it an array anyways? If I do like this, does it? No. Complain? Still ambiguous. How do I make this not ambiguous? Besides getting rid of that in our... When did that new thing come up? Link to array. What version did that appear in? And why do we have it in our thing? It's been around since 3.5. So we should never have had it. I don't know why it's not being a problem here, though. Is that because we're in the namespace and it like is like, well, then your namespace wins? That might be the case. We just like do this. Is it like it's not ambiguous because it's in your namespace? Yeah, that's what it is. So that's not good. We probably just never, I don't know why that was ever added to the engine common, because it's going to be a problem. We can remove it for the next update. Remove to array method from engine common. So this is, we need to do this for now. This has to be this way to work around. Engine common issue will be fixed soon. This should be your own namespace, not Handelabra. Dot my mod console. Sure. We shouldn't have a method named toArray. So we'll get rid of that. Probably was just something that got added and we never noticed it would be a problem because it was always in our own namespace. Yeah, and then using director is unnecessary, but we want it to be necessary. Cool, so just make sure everything builds. So we should be able to run this. I don't know if it's going to run. Oh, we got a null reference. Cool. Well, at least we get to... Where'd my output go? Load the assembly terminal. Yeah. Right, so we actually could not find class for card above on front page character. Why not? Let's just make a simpler game instead of Oblivion. Whoops. Blade Bunker, Legacy of the Right. That seems fine. Alright, so that... Oh, I see. It's like... Didn't clear the log. Or... What? How do we... If I run again, is it just stacking up this terminal output? Yeah. So this is the start. Why is it talking about Oblivion still? Is that from the previous? Where's the new? Where's the new? I don't understand why it's talking about Oblivion when I run it. Where's this coming from? Like if I go and run it on the command line, is it going to say that? My mod console. Bin debug. Yeah, OBS crashed, but it appears to be back. So here I am. I think it'll probably get split up annoyingly for Krista, but hopefully that's okay. OBS objects to the secrets being so readily available. Yeah. Okay, so we seem to be back. So yeah, this works. So like we're at Legacy's turn. I can like view my hand. I can like play a card. S. Play motivational charge. It's there. So this is like the super developer-y mode, which can be helpful to do complicated things. Number Q is for quit. Nope. What? Q. Q to quit. How? Control C. Maybe. Is that a Q? That looks like a Q. But if you use the -I parameter, that puts it into interactive mode. Make a computer battle simulation. And actually, there's still Trello stuff there that I need to delete. So you can actually start a random game, play it, whatever, and like view the game state and like all that kind of stuff. There's lots of functionality here to actually play the game. But if you want to like, I want to set up a situation sort of like a unit test, but like play around with it, that's what the developer mode is for. So it's useful to have both modes, I think. So when we first started development, we used the developer mode a lot. I don't know how much we use it anymore. It seems a little crusty. So let's go and just search for anything that says Trello and delete it. I'm just going to delete these lines. And that's commented out. And we don't need a change log because that's not a thing. Cool. There's no more instances of the word Trello. How about of the word note? Yeah, so we have some extra output. These are like a variable name note. That's fine. Why the quit button didn't work? Q to quit. Like Q? I don't know. Do we have to type quit? Like input number 4. Where's the quit from this? Save game, load game. This is all like the not user-friendly stuff. Did the quit just get like removed from that? Can I just put it back? Quit requested. True. We have to do this. And we like just leave the method. Yeah, we have to get out. Or maybe we don't. Let's try it. I feel like that must have used to be there and it got like removed for some. All right. So whenever I run this on the command line, OBS crashes for some reason. So I guess we're not doing that anymore. Like exactly when I run this, OBS crashes. So I guess we'll just not do that. But I put the quit function in, so it seemed fine. We're back. Don't run this console program when you're on OBS, I guess. I don't know. For some reason, that doesn't make any sense. But we're going to go with that. Okay, so we're going to say, I guess we want to, I'm just going to change these to also have the right.NET version as I'm just going to put them to the same as our engine because there's just sort of restrictions. This is 3.5 based on the Unity version, and that's 4. Just to make sure people don't start using features that aren't available. Hopefully we can modernize that at some point, but package retargeting required. All right, you do that. Is it going to totally break everything now? Oh wait, don't kill OBS. Okay, OBS is fine. It actually ran and like let me have input. Let's run all the tests and make sure they still work. Cool. Okay. So I did get the video download was canceled, but that happens on Twitch sometimes. I just have to reload the page. Yeah, we're fine. Oh, Twitch doesn't add? I guess you just gotta subscribe. I don't know. Okay. So we are going to this all seems to be okay. So add console project and update.net versions. Hey, thanks for the sub, Worm Superior. All I have to do is say, everyone subscribe, and then it happens, I guess. Why have you never used a side dock in macOS before? This is my life. I love having the dock there. I've done that ever since I started using a Mac, because I started on a laptop, like a 12-inch iBook, and like, yeah, the dock takes up way too much space and blocks your windows. Like, if you have the dock on the bottom, you can't put windows at the bottom of the screen unless you auto hide, but it just auto hiding on the left is my favorite thing, and I will never change. And sometimes I accidentally press this button. I'm like, why did I press that button? I never want that. But it's a thing that exists, I guess. Oh, when I pressed mission control, and it went everywhere, and OBS is totally freaking out. Oh, because I changed this. It made me change the scenes in OBS as well. Whoops. I'm just gonna delete this scene. I don't need this anymore. Then can I press this? Yeah. There we go. I have it set to like function F4, but it's still like OBS still triggered on it, even though it shouldn't. So if I change the brightness on my screen, it probably triggers OBS keyboard shortcuts. Yeah, so enjoy. You learned something from that. And I mean, my window isn't there, but it can be there. I often have Discord up in the top left like that, and my mail at the bottom left. Got my spaces for things. Okay, what are we doing? We committed our code locally. I just want to like, can I put in, yeah, name, Handelabra Games Inc. Copyright. Just make sure that we are listed there. Is a thing that like gets saved in the solution? No? Okay. Fine. I thought it would go into like these assembly infos or whatever. That's fine. Whatever. All right. So I think we're good to like post this up because this is all working and you should be able to like use it. So I should add like a README too, right? I can just do that on the GitHub website, I think, when I post the repository. So let's go to github.com. Let's make a new repository owned by Handelabra called Workshop Sample. It's available. Is it? I mean, is that per owner or is it like global? A global name? Like if I type like, what's a GitHub project? Steamworks.net. Okay. fictional octo guacamole. We'll call it workshop sample. Example project for developing a mod for Sentinels of the Multiverse. Name it Rails. It's public. I'm importing existing repository. So I will add these things after. Do this. Get to command line. Projects / my mod, which is not at all the name of the repository. Oh, good. I don't have my SSH key set up. Blah. Oh, yeah. I guess I need to do that. So I'm just going to do this. So you can look at me while I do things that you're not allowed to see. Probably. Okay. I mean, it should be just the public key I put up. But just in case. There are no SSH keys associated with your account. Well, you should be able to see my public key, but I'm not going to still put it up because someone who works in network security. Yeah, don't show your private key. Yeah, like just never show your private key on your screen ever anyways, right? All right. That is a public key. Let me just try pushing this up again. Did it make a branch called main? Why is it not? Is that a new thing? I kind of like it. I don't like the word master, so. All right, that all worked. We can show the screen again. What good is a private key if you make it public? The default branch is main, which I approve of. I think the master-slave terminology is gross and outdated and should be removed from the industry. Seems they did that in July. GitHub main branch. I like it. I think it's good. Yeah. It is very much a colonial default kind of thing. And some will say like, but it's always been that way. That doesn't make it okay. Conventions are not okay if they come from bad places. So I don't care if your old hard drives say master and slave. We shouldn't do that anymore. Yeah, I like main. That seems okay. Morden grad theme enters the chat. Master/replica. Cool, Lawrence Superior. I like that you're doing that. Yeah, I like that. I'm on board with that, and I like that they're like copy and paste, do this to init your repository, just like does that for you. It renames your branch. It's like, hey, this is the branch that you should be using, not that. I'm into it. We can rename our other branches probably if it doesn't break anything. Where'd my repo go? It's here. So I'm going to add a README. I mean, that's what it is. This project is a very rough template for starting work on making a new a mod with new hero, with new hero, villain, and or environment decks. Getting started. You'll need to clone the project. Or like fork it, whatever. Like, you don't want to clone it, right? Like, probably get a copy of the project. Probably make your own repo or a fork or something. I don't know. I'm not like shipping documentation today. What should we have for supper? Chicken sounds good. Also, you're on TV. I don't need to have notifications on. The main thing you need to do is update the references. Update the references for Engine, Common, and Sentinels. Engine to point to the DLLs in your own copy of the game. On Windows, they're somewhere. On Mac, they're at the same location they are already, but with your own username, not mine. Linux, somewhere else. I'm just gonna, I don't know, let me just open a tab on the other browser window. I don't know if I go to like the Google Docs route, if that is a safe thing to be pulling up on my screen. I want to pull up SOTM. Customer support sheet has important places. Here's some behind the curtain stuff. We have, cheat sheets for customer support. Very helpful. Like, where do I find my file, my data file, or whatever. So this is probably where it is on Windows. I don't know. I don't have Windows. Or thereabouts. On Linux, it is... I guess I can put this. I.e. that. And then you have to like go into the package /sentinels.apps/ yeah, like where is that? Open. Nope. Oh. Right, it's not actually there. It's like in a number. How do we go? Let's go to it. Let's just document this at least sort of correctly. Application support. Steam apps. Common. Sentinels. Right. Okay. And then like this. And contents, resources, managed, right? Data, managed, yeah. Here. Back, I'm turned around. Here we go. Mac. Let's do this. Dupe. Username. For the Windows location, Steam apps, common, other multiverse. Cool, thanks. Sentinels underscore data managed. Then Linux is here. And it's probably, actually I can go and look and see, because, oh my gosh. I'm not good at navigating my screen when I have a tab, and I actually want to switch tabs sometimes. The Linux files, let's go and find. We can see what, I can just look at what the build looks like, right? Content, Sentinels, Linux. Yeah, it's in the same Sentinels underscore data, just like the Windows one, but with forward slashes like civilized operating systems. Cool. You should then be able to compile, run the unit tests, run the console program, etc. Making your mod. So change the namespace in the project, right? You have to change it in here. Default namespace. And like rename things. Feel free to rename the project files, etc., to whatever you like. The default namespace setting in the main project, my mod, must be a unique namespace for your mod. And you know there's going to be like a million mods that use the workshopping namespace. Maybe we'll just like ban that one. It must match the namespace of your code. Currently, only a single string with no dots is supported, and that's something we'll change. I think it needs to be changed right now. It just as a single. But I think if I go to like my card controller, yeah. Then the namespace of your DEX is based on that. So you can't do like my company dot my job dot whatever dot whatever dot whatever dot whatever, just one thing. The namespace of your DEX code, card controllers, etc. should be your namespace dot DEC identifier. Try in front of everything. Yeah. Is there anything else I need to put in this README right now? I think that's like the main thing. If I like download this and like do stuff. I mean, this is not fully documented. There's going to be more documentation and proper template project to come someday. Try, yeah, no dashes or underscores. I mean, underscores maybe. Don't count on it. Uppercase camel case, please. I mean, you do what you got to do, but we're going to say that's what you need to do. All right, let's go with that for the README. All right, that's a README. I want to add the license too. How do we do that? They had like an example, but that doesn't have a button. GitHub license. Choosealicense.com. We're starting a community. So this. Seems fine to start with. MIT license. Like people can use it and change it and whatever, that's fine, but like it still belongs to Handelabra originally. That's the main thing. Copy to clipboard. Can you like type in here? No. Permits commercial use, distribution, modification, private use. That's fine. Need to, yeah, include the license. No warranty. We do not warrant our code. Then I can just make a new file. License dot. Ooh, it's like, oh, we're ready. Choose a license. Handelabra Games Inc. Perfect. Look at this is what I want. Like all these things that like magically make it happen. Good job, Cthulhu. Yeah, that seems fine. I have not talked to a lawyer about this. Sure, it's fine. Okay, so this is ready, right? We did that. Oh, right. We need one thing I need to edit the README is say. The update, the setup. Well, I guess that's once you're, yeah. Update the setup.cs in base or in my mod in the test project to use your own class and namespace or to register, right? Yeah. In the one-time setup method. Guess the do setup method. Yeah, that thing needs to happen. Cool. All right, we can obviously update this anytime. We already have people watching the repository. Amazing. So I'll link this in the Twitch chat right now. Here is the link to the GitHub project. And feel free to, if you got like ideas of like improvements, throw in a pull request or whatever. It's still, really early. This is like, we wanted to just get something out there to make it easier for people to get started and not have to be like, I'm decompiling the DLL so I can insert my code and allow it to load and all that stuff. You can do that if you want, but we don't want you to have to do that. That's not the goal. So at least this is like an initial, you can get started. Oh, it's just going to stretch in a couple hours. Oh. All right. That looks fun. And let's link that into the Trello board too. Sample template project. GitHub. Does GitHub have a capital H? It sure does. I like writing names the way they're supposed to be. No, we're adding an attachment. Here, GitHub repository. You can use this rough sample template to get started. Cool. So this isn't going to let you get into the game, just to be clear, but it is going to let you get started on programming a deck in the same way that we would program a deck. So, I mean, like, there's nothing stopping you from making your own, completely programming your own decks starting now, because you're able to, like, basically this is how we program, is we make the deck list and make the classes and make tests and run them all, get them all working, and then we bring them to the UI after. So, like, welcome. All right, so this is done. And that we put in our, we give you a gift of like how many thousands of lines of code. 6,000 here. And about 6,000 here, so 12,000 lines of framework code, so that you can, be working on the same level as we are when we're building engine stuff. So, of course, documentation is going to be one of the next big things once we finish prototyping out the UI support stuff. So we can also probably start doing the documentation stuff. So I'll chat with David and Jean-Marc about potentially having them start doing that on Fridays alongside. Start working on getting some documentation put in on the engine side, especially places that are more complicated, like which of these deal damage methods should I use and why, things like that. So yeah, that's cool. Learn literally everything else. Yeah, and like having more examples, like these examples are very small, so we might look at like just like releasing like legacies deck or something like that, like, or a villain deck and a hero deck and an environment deck or something, so that you have a full example of something. Or like, I mean, one thing I wanted to do was like just program my own mod, and that would be like a way to have an example, right? So it's like the mod that we make in order to make a mod, which this sort of is, but in a really silly example way, like actually have a deck that's playable. So we will get to something like that soon. I think just like putting out an existing deck might be problematic copyright-wise in comparison, so that might not be the way to go. Cool, so things are happening. Okay, so let's just keep watching these numbers go up. There's a fork. Congratulations, we've been forked. That's fun. So let's close these tabs and look at what's next. So I guess if there's any questions about the engine stuff, throw them in here for now, because I'm going to switch over to, I think, back to Unity stuff now. I think because I want to be looking again at some of the Atlas stuff that we started looking at like at the end of the day last week. And we talked about like how do we do that and what makes sense. So I think we can look at like trying that and making sure that we can do it. Fairly asks, are team villain decks any different than regular villain decks? No, they're pretty much the same. Totally the same, I guess. Basically, the game can have any number of turn takers, heroes, and villains in any order. There are some like assumptions that the game, like if the game sees that like there are multiple villains, it's gonna do things in team villain ways. But like the game rules just sort of potentially support anything. We just sort of the UI shows things in certain, like allows you to do certain things based on the rules of the game. But in the engine, it's sort of a pretty more free form. Because team villains are exactly the same, right? They have a start of turn, they play a card, end of turn. They have a character card, or maybe two. They have a deck with cards and trash. So their own play area, they just sort of work the same. What makes effects that linger show up under the lightning bolt icon? That's a good question. There's a thing called status effects. So yeah, stun bolt will, Wraith damage reduction. I thought I just said Wraith. Oh, stun bolt. Let's pull up stun bolt anyways because it's got a trigger too. Stun bolt. Wraith deals one target, one projectile damage until the start of your turn. Reduce all damage dealt by that target by 1. So the reason why this code is in here like that is because guys and applied numerology. And since this is an equipment card, guys can have it, and things can happen. So there's these functions that say, instead of this just being like a fixed number, it calls a function that then like other cards can ask about, like, should I change that number? Numerals, right? Numerals, am I right? So that's fun. So we basically do this, then we're selecting targets and dealing damage then. So this has a parameter to add a status effect, and the status effect is reduce damage dealt by the target until its turn, which is like a helper method in card controller. But what it does is, like, anything that has this effect can just call this. So it makes a reduced damage status effect, which is like, if that is actually in the model, it's like a serializable class, so it gets saved in the game, as opposed to something that's only at the controller level. You got a card that's, are you playing one shot with a number? Make it one more than that. Cool. So that you can give parameters to the effect of like, when does it, how long does it last, and like things like that. So status effects are how we do that. Versus like Inspiring Presence is like an ongoing trigger. It only works when Inspiring Presence is in play. And yeah, there's options for status effects, like you can indicate that you want them to show up in the lightning bolt or not. If they're like very specific to a certain card, then you might not want, or whatever. So there's different parameters there. I'm not sure, but actually status effects might always be global. Anyways, there's battle zones. Yeah, there's stuff. All right, so let's close that one, and let's close this one. I guess. So yeah, the loading resources stuff, let's get to that next. It's kind of a context shift as well there. All right, I'm gonna just take a quick break, and I'll be back and we can dive into this stuff again. So quick break. Whoop. Big font. Slowly making the font big. All right, BRB. Whoops. Microphone attack. All right. Delete that doc. We don't need that forever, do we? Okay. So we were looking at making sprite atlases and stuff that look like this. So yeah, I think last time at the end of the stream and day we decided probably having sprite atlases created by mod authors and shipped with the mod is the best way to go, because there's like free tools like Texture Packer to do that. So we're going to load the texture and the JSON data from the disk and try to set that up at runtime. Let me just check my messages. 1 second though. I'm also supposed to vacuum the couch, so we'll see about that. Watch John Text live. That's right. Okay, let's pull up Slack for a second and see if anything's important on there. Got some messages. Okay. Let me get my windows in the order I need. All right. So yeah, let's see if we can have the graphics of our awesome mod appear. Actually, I want to keep my mod file open because we got like character card and 2 cards that we can use. Let's open up Sentinels. And do that. Sentinels. Okay, and I actually want to restore. I just stashed the changes that we had made last week with loading up our mod assembly and putting in our character. So if we run this again, it should just work again, but we should see our like new power text and stuff like that. In theory. Did it right. There's our character, and I also want to like not have Baronblade go first. Let's skip to our own turn. Oh yeah, we're Nemesis of Legacy as well. So we're there for Nemesis of Baronblade. Oh yeah, so my power, draw 3 cards, deal 1 target 2 psychic damage. Let's do our player do nothing card. Draw 1 card, draw 2 card, draw 3 card. Migrant Coder, select a target to be dealt damage. Look at that. It's like we programmed a thing and now it's doing a thing. I mean, it was doing a thing. To me, like everything that's happening in here is like just as valid as everything you just saw, but it's always nice to have things appear on the screen. That's nice. I think that's one of the most like gratifying things about doing graphics programming and game programming is like you can make pretty things happen on the screen. Whereas if it's text, it's still cool, but not as exciting. Yeah, getting the decks functional, like that's the most important thing, I think. So Okay, so let's make graphics for these cards. But what I want, let me fix this so it doesn't go to Baron Blade's turn. Close others, or to the right, sure. Heroes. Game. The first hero turn taker. Don't start the game. This should leave off like at our turn when we run here. Now we not have to go through Baron Blade's turn. Also set up in the card tester, I guess, too, but this seems fine. So, cool. So things to notice here. The cards obviously don't have this small art, or the full art, or a deck back. Character card doesn't have art on both sides. We don't have the hero logo. That's a file. So Absolute Zero is like just the default graphic, which is sometimes if there's like an error loading the game, you'll see a bunch of Absolute Zeros. The small version of the deck back. So many copies of the worst card ever. Why did I make that card? Okay, so let's see if we can get an atlas loaded in at runtime here. And I feel like we can just do this in the Sentinels project instead of a template project, because we need like all the NGUI stuff and everything, right? So I think I'm gonna make like a test scene for this though, so we don't have to like spin up the whole game and everything. Let's just make a new scene. Oh, right. Yeah. Create scene. Mod testing. So we want to just like have and we'll make a class. Mod tester. And we'll make a component and stuff like that. So let's go to our scripts folder. You have to add scripts in Unity, I guess. I mean, you don't have to, but it works better, I think. And we'll make a mod tester thinger. All right, so where's our code for like the assembly or whatever? Let's put this in here for now. We're gonna load up this where you gonna help me if I do this? Yeah, help me. Help me. That? Cool. All right, so what we want to do in this is like, I don't know if we need this, but like load, I don't need to open my email. Clicked wrong. Load a texture and JSON data file from disk. We want to set up the UI atlas. Yeah, that's like the first thing we need to do. So like we need to like load up the texture. We have the news image thing. We do load a texture. Okay, yeah. So this is using like Unity's downloader thing. Can like just get you the texture easily. So there's like other ways to read a texture from disk, I guess, instead of using that. So we'll look that up. And the JSON file we already use in like the weekly one-shot thing. Periodical data model, I think, and everything. Where's that all from? This class. Oh, right, no, there's a local results, your local awards. That's what they're called. This is your like mints and everything. So we load a JSON file with that information. And parse it out and make objects and stuff. So we can sort of use this. This is your progress record. information. So we can basically use that to like, there's probably some code out there for like texture 2D, JSON, Unity, texture, packer, JSON, Unity. Like someone's probably written code for that can get us started. Yeah, there's some code here for it with MIT license. That's our code with MIT license. Yeah, how do we parse this file? I mean, I can obviously do this. It's just like someone's already written it. It's an editor plugin only. Yeah, this is the JSON, but represented in C#. Is it like only an editor plug? I guess it's an editor plugin. Hey, Mr. Vexar. Is modding limited to adding more cards to the game, or can you change or add, say, sound effects? Our focus initially is supporting adding more things to the game. There's certainly potential for other things, other kinds of mods in the future, but our focus right now is, like, we see how many people have made new decks and variant cards. Like, that's, I feel like, the most, to me and to us, it's the most interesting thing that's already, like, been done so much. People have already play tested and created these decks, so there's, like, a huge amount of, untapped potential there. But there's certainly, potentially room for other types of mods in the future. They're just not like, they wouldn't use the same sort of mechanism, right? So it's a little different. You can certainly have your own sound effects for your deck. That would be a thing that will be supported, because like Guise does that and stuff already. So it's a thing we support already. Or like the Argent Adept has his own sound effects for his powers. So this is like a whole editor thing that is loading up the JSON and making like Unity sprite atlas out of it, I guess. I don't know if we need all that. We just need to like parse this and get like the values we need. This seems like maybe too much, but I mean, it's not too much. It's like the right amount, but also like a little more too much. This data representation is fine. Is it like using, no, it's not using a JSON file here. It's like it's created. We could like start with this and then like, oh, it does do the JSON stuff here too. I see. Basically, we want like this sort of thing, but like going to the NGUI atlas. But NGUI can import from Texture Packer also, right? So NGUI probably has code for this. UI. Well, UI Texture Packer is like NGUI's. Oh wait, where is this code? This is from, oh yeah, it's NGUI. But it's public domain. It's like, so it comes from something else that's not actually part of. So this is like actually packing the textures. I wonder if like, because NGUI can support texture packer format. Texture packer import. will blah 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 strip out the .png extension. ngui JSON. Extract the info we need from texture package JSON UV rect and size. Right, so this is already here. Load sprite data. Parse the JSON file loading sprite information. Is this an editor? No, it's just like this. It's part of their JSON thing, but it's in here. And it sets up the UI atlas. I mean, okay. So we just need to give the texture to the UI atlas and the JSON like through here. We need to decode that. We need to basically give it a hash table from this. So I think we can use the ngui JSON thing. Then we don't have to like decode it ourselves, right? We can even give it a text asset, which I don't know if we have it in asset form. We have a text string. We could just update this maybe. I got another text. John reads texts. Mr. Vexar. How advanced will it be to make new cards from the game? Do we need some knowledge in coding? You will need to know some coding. We're planning to create some more like examples. So if you look at the example I posted, it's very basic, but like you can look at the character card, which, so this is the incap abilities that don't do anything. They use power. So if you, I know there's a lot here, but like a lot of it is like this chunk here is just a boilerplate that says to run this code. So draw cards, draw 3 cards is what this line says. This line says select 1 target and deal 2 psychic damage. So once you get familiar with how the code, the sort of structure of the code is and what's available, which is something we need to document, that will be more examples of like common things to do. And, in a lot of cases you can just sort of like, I need to deal, melee damage to 3 targets. So you can just like copy this and change the values and it will do that, right? So certainly the more programming knowledge you have, the better, especially if you want to do more complicated stuff. But doing basic stuff is not going to be too hard. Yeah, and this boilerplate is gross, but there's not like a huge way around it. So right now that's the way it is. We're going to look at see if we can like reduce it, but I'm not sure it's feasible. Because it comes down to like Unity runs coroutines in one way and the like native.net runs them in a different way, and you can't you need to use one or the other when you're in the right context. So it's kind of tricky. And if it was easy to not have this, we wouldn't have it. It's not, we don't like it. It just is what it is. Trident said, I noticed in your blank art card test is that card frames are already in there, seemingly baked in. Yeah, so I can show you sort of how cards are put together. Maybe. Cards are like dynamically generated. It's not just like one image, right? It's like there's the frame and the title label is dynamic and the text labels and flavor text and the card image and if it's a target, it has a different thing there. Night Mist has, there's a thing for Night Mist. If there's magic numbers, it will show the magic numbers on the card. Let's go into like the multiverse, aka deck browser. We can like inspect a card. So like, if we like look at True Shot, this is a small card, but it's the same for the full card. Like the card has, cards can be next to it. So there's like a space for that. You've got all of the different pieces. You can see when I'm going through it, like it's like highlighting in the scene view, the different parts. Like the background can be a different color. It's actually, I think, just a white texture that gets colored for like different types of decks, right? So like heroes are yellow or whatever, environments are green. You can change that at runtime here because Unity. The icons are in that little area, and I made that one be that for some reason. Keywords, Nemesis icons, the thing that shows multiple copies. You can have titles, token pools. If we pull up the full card, I think there's a thing for magic number. There's a magic number thing. Oh, it might be because that's a villain card. The villain cards don't show magic numbers, but hero cards do. Let's go find a hero. Click too much. Oh, team villains. Oblivion. Environments. Oh, where's the heroes? Okay, let's go just to the card tester. Don't want to click that many times. This is a very handy type of scene. So let's look at Amulet of the Elder Gods. So there's a small card and the full card. This is a scene we use to like work on cards, because you can type in whatever card you want, make sure like the flavor text renders properly and stuff like that. Heroes would have been the other way. Okay, I should know. So the magic number is like a special thing on hero card that can be there. Yeah, since it's a special thing, it's special. Guys has some special things. There's some actually special cards, like look what I found is like not actually using, it's like special. Guys is special. There's a function to like say these are, is it under here? Yeah, these are cards that have like special things, like the crowd's favor, the inevitable destruction card, skyscrapers card, character card, dark harpies card. There's certain cards that do special things and don't just look like normal cards, and so they have extra, like Safe House. Safe House is a really weird card, right? Like it doesn't look like any other card in Sentinels. It's got like the title all different. It doesn't, like, it's just weird, right? Like it's so different than every other villain card. No other villain card looks like this. Shrine of the Ennead is also a strange card. And the Shine of the Ennead is more of like shiny. The title deck card, Shrine of the Ennead, is also weird because its art is bigger than most cards. The title card, like, what's the title card? I don't know what the title card is. You mean the crowd's favor? Which also is a really weird card that doesn't look like anything else. Bloodsworn Coliseum. Yeah, that has a totally different font up here. It has like different ratio of text to image, like just because it's a little different it's still different, right? And that means it's special. Versus like 99% of cards are exactly fit a template. I don't think it's similar to Safe House, really. Is a different, actually, Bloodsworn Coliseum is a different size in the digital version. I don't think it is in the real version, but we made it a different size so that it can show enough titles on it, because it actually shows the titles on it. So we made it bigger. Anyways, weird stuff. The Shine of the Ennead. The new mod coming up about shiny Ennead cards. Anyway, so we're looking at loading this stuff and using this NGUI thing to help, I think, is probably a good idea. So like, loading the texture is like texture 2d.load from file or whatever, read file. I could Google that. NGUI JSON, right? Where is that? It's not an editor. Is it editor? It is an editor script. Okay, so we have to like copy it, I guess. Basically. Or just like do what it does. It's kind of annoying that this is in an editor script. But it's what we got to do. We can make a new atlas. UI atlas. And this is a mounted behavior, I think. Yeah, so we need to like instantiate it. By doing add component. Just do it on this component. Add component. Okay, this .game object on add component. UI atlas. And we can see that happen. Would a lot of that weird stuff need to be done up in Unity? If mods need to do weird stuff, then it would be probably we would need to add support for doing the type of weird things that people want to do. If that makes sense to cards, as opposed to like. Because like creating those these prefabs is not going to be trivial or possible because of the libraries we have, and we can't share that code because it doesn't belong to us, for example. So I don't know that it's more of like we need to build capacity for people to do the things they need to do if necessary. But so yeah, we'll have to see. In the meantime, there's workarounds that could be done. So we'll see. We'll get there when we get there, and that's still a ways down the road, I think. Nothing is impossible. So let's get back to our mod testing. Let's add this mod tester. So this is just gonna add this empty atlas. Cool. So if I make create a 2D UI and make a sprite and GUI. And there's a whole NGUI menu. I forgot this. We don't use NGUI for our new games. Make a sprite. And can I make it show up on the screen? Yeah. Okay. Looks gross, but it shows up on the screen. That's the important thing. So we need to be able to what we need to do is be able to put a graphic into this sprite based on files at runtime. So that's what we're doing. So public sprite, that's our UI sprite. And we assign the atlas to the sprite, and we'll give it the name or whatever. So this is gonna sort of be the framework that we're setting up here with the prototyping. Assign this here. All right, so this we're assigning the atlas, but it doesn't have any sprites, so it won't do anything. So let's load a texture from a file. That seems easy. Unity load texture from file. Look, people talk about it all the time. Texture 2D dot load image or use the www. www is like deprecated though, so we don't want to probably do that. Someone just did this. Let's just like start with this. We need system.io. And I think there's like we want it to be non-readable, right? Like that, it uses too much memory if we do that, but texture 2D dot load image. Yeah, so I guess you need an instance of texture 2D. Load image. Yeah, also we want to mark non-readable. Probably. Let's leave it like that first. All right, so load PNG. I don't know which format is best. This is the file name we're loading. This is a prototype. We're hard coding stuff. Atlas.texture is the text. It cannot be assigned to. It is read only. Oh no. How do we set the texture of UI Atlas? Texture. Whoops. Texture. Upgrade. It's only a getter. Or we can give it a material. Can we set the texture? We can like change, we have the code for this so we can change it, but okay, we can set the sprite, we can make a material. Is material. I wonder if I can just have a material already and then like use it or assign the texture to it. Like if you look at our existing atlases that are similar, like they're textures, but then there's a material that's using certain shader. Let's look at this. What this is more like it. Unlit transparent colored. Okay, so we just need to make like a material. I think material is like an asset, right? It's not something that you can like make like that. We need to like make a blank material. Nini material runtime. How do you create new materials at runtime? No, you just like do that. Okay. new material. You have to give it a shader. Shader.find the name of the shader, which was transparent, blah, 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 blah. Unlit / transparent colored. I don't know if that's going to work. Okay. And then we can say main texture is that. Then we can say material equals that. Let's see what happens. Oh, we get a pop-up permissions. Sure. All right, so we have the anonymous material, but there's no, yeah, that's the atlas. There's no sprites in the atlas. But that's kind of neat. Something happened. Actually, just to be sure we load it, we can actually like just set it into the texture. This .texture.material. Just make sure like we're loading the thing. And GUI create texture. Just don't put it there. We'll put it like up to the left. And doesn't start with anything. We'll assign it here. So we should see that sprite, the test.png, show up on the screen here. Yay! So there it is. Cool. All right, so I think let's just like use the same format, the default format of, yeah, the dictionary-based format is what this person is using. How about this? Like, is it using the array format or the... Yeah, it's using a hash table for the frames. So, and using the key for the name of the frame. Okay, so that makes sense, and that's probably what the NGUI format is as well. For each item, yeah, the name is the item.key. So, okay, so that's the format. So let's load the JSON then. In here. So that's the texture. We got the graphic loaded in. So anything is possible. It's true. Ugh. But yeah, obviously that's things that require us to do less to support weird stuff is preferable. But eventually we can do anything. And you can do anything, but it'll take more work if it's more weird. Okay, so what are we doing here? Loading JSON file and add sprites records to the atlas. So we have our own JSON thing that we use, which is probably nicer than NGUI's that we use in this other thing. At least I like it. We have to get the text. Yeah, I guess we'll just like, we could make a function. We just throw it in here. File.read all text. make sure that loads. Hey, stuff. Okay. So we can do this basically. Of course, error handling, you know, all that stuff. All right, we get a JSON object, which is going to be like, let's pull up the file. It's going to be like, you need to update. You need to update. No, just open the file. There we go. So the root of it is this frames object. Then there's like this oh, right. So the root of it is a dictionary. So we want frames. This is like, and it's not a list, it's like a frame hash. Yeah, frame hash. So for each one in there, sprite, the key, sprite name, value equals sprite data. So we'll just do sort of what ngui is doing here. This, we want this UI sprite data. Yeah. Like we just want most of this. Sure. How about we call that item? And then it will be happy. Don't care about old sprites. This is like updating existing ones, right? So. Sure. Get rid of extensions. Right, so we have the value. Yeah, so this is using like this hash table based one, but we are using a different way. And we don't need this. Okay, this isn't gonna work, so we need to like just set ignore all errors. Yeah. So the value is actually like a JSON object. So like that is what they're using. And the frame is table get object frame. Yeah. They just really want it to be a hash table in their code, but we can just do it. I don't know that we need all of this support, but why not? Everything else is working the same because it's the same like array-based access or override or whatever, because it works like a dictionary. All right, so we should have a sprite list now, assuming that parses and works. Let's see. Cool, no errors. We can select a sprite. Look at that. this all came from my hard drive. It's not in the Unity project. So we can say this dot sprite name equals, you know, blatant reference. I guess this is the thing that's happening. Very nice. Cool. That is a tasty burger. So cool. So this is the texture here. That's the full Atlas image that we have from our desktop here, right? And the blatant reference is in here. It's like squashed, but whatever. That's not a big deal. The JSON file is describing where it is in the file, and it looks to be pretty bang on accurate. So that's great. And we're loading that runtime. So that means like we can set up a load this Atlas and have a reference to it while we're running and give that to the card and say, here, use this Atlas to the card view. Use this Atlas where right now we would give it like Guys' Atlas or Legacy's Atlas or whatever. Awesome. So that is working like a charm. And this isn't even doing anything, but this would be like, so we could get a file that's with files named after our cards and stuff like that. Like, to me, that's just like not a big deal connecting that part up. The main thing was like, can this work? Does it need to be done at edit time or can it be done at runtime? And actually, just to be sure, let's run this in a built player and not just in the editor. I think that's important. Let's do a build. While that's building, we can go to our Trello board and be like, we did it. Oh, come back to me. This. Using it for cards is like, sure, it's not a huge problem, but working great with texture packer JSON format. Cool. Yeah, like that was the main thing of like all the resources, like just getting those sprite atlases loading and everything. Oh, and I want to check, can I set the texture to be non-readable? I think I should be able to be, because that's important for memory usage, especially on mobile, but not like that's a big problem because we're doing mods, but like may as well not take up too much memory, right? Oh, and of course this scene is not in the build settings, so it's not going to work. Let me change that first and just say true, mark as non-readable. And I want that to be a true fact. What non-readable means is that we, like, your code, you can upload the texture directly to the video card and not have to like inspect the color values of it or anything like that. Like, that's what that means. So cool, that worked. So let's just put this scene at the start, so it will start up on that instead of our game. Seems fine. New version of Sentinels just comes to this screen. I hope everyone's okay with that. You need to have this file on your computer at this location to see a picture of Guys. That's all the game does now. Whew. building. This is why we use prototyping projects, because the build takes like 2 minutes instead of 2 seconds. Did you really finish? Succeeded. Okay. Go away. This. So it pops up this because it's a Mac thing. But yeah, look at that. The images that we wanted to load have loaded. Welcome to the new version of Sentinels, where guys is a tiny icon on the screen. All right. That's fine. Okay. So obviously not. So let's see. We don't want to save the changes to editor build settings. Go away. We can definitely commit these changes. This is like, I want to make sure to save this code because this code is going to end up going to like the real places where it's going to go. So that's good. So basically, prototype loading Sprite Atlas from disk. Texture plus texture packer JSON. Cool. We still have my like weird thing here. That'll probably just stash again because I mean, it's not the end of the world if I commit that. It only runs in the editor. It's just strange. So yeah, using it for cards is not really, I don't think that's part of prototyping anymore. That's just like the card stuff needs to know about that. Hi, Frenzy. We use Git, yes. And we use LFS for large files to keep the repositories at reasonable sizes. Cool. So that's like the prototyping stuff, right? Like generally. So I'm pretty happy about that. So I'm going to just delete this. That prototyping, I'm satisfied that that is going to work. And so probably the next big thing is to have the UI be able to load a mod, even if it's just like ad hoc loading, like pass a command line parameter or something like that to the game, and it's able to like load into, I don't know if it's useful to like load into a game, but like I just don't want to have to be like, we need to make like a whole screen and interface and everything just to get started. Like I want to have a way to sort of shortcut in a way to get your mod in play to test it. And so something like, you know, if you have a file that describes the mods, it will read the file and load them up, right? The DLLs and the namespaces or whatever. And like, I guess there's also like, we need to come up with a format and like a folder structure, like how your mods are set up, so it knows how to load them and stuff. That's all part of it as well. But obviously the minimum is like, where's your DLL and what's the namespace I should be loading, I think is important. So that's something. We also have the making variants is a thing that's not set up right now. We're set up for creating your own decks right now. That's what's set up. So let's see. So yeah. So that's part of this ad hoc loading thing. So I think part of this is like mod format specification, which is like folder structure, manifest file, namespace, title, author, DLL, or etc. Like the DLL is probably going to be like your DLL needs to be named this or whatever. Like it needs to just be a fixed thing. DLL, resources, images, etc. So like this needs to be like specified and documented. So it's like to make a mod, make this folder structure and files in these places with these names or whatever, depending on what they are, and zip that up, and that's your mod, right? And then the game is able to, like Steam Workshop will like download that, or if you're doing an ad hoc way, like put any folder, you know, inside a folder called mods will automatically get loaded by the game or something like that. That might be a way to do it, is just like ad hoc mod loading from UI. So like if the game finds a mods folder, it looks inside and looks at each subfolder. If the subfolder has a mod, tries to load it. So, and load it. What does loading mean, right? Like loading, like register the DLL or the assembly namespace. Like it needs to like register them in the UI as well, so it knows like the new game screen can show these things. Yeah, what's the minimum you need for a mod to function and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's probably like I don't know if we need to like load the resources. We could like check the resources to make sure that they're like valid. But like you don't need to like load up all the graphics, because you might not even play a game with that character, right? There's no need to like load everything up immediately. But like load anything needed immediately, like new game screen, images, right? Things like in the new game screen, there's a different atlas for like those cards. Those are like not cards, they're like selection objects, and they can be different than the character card images, and so those would need to be loaded up like at startup for that. But like the actual card graphics and stuff for all the deck doesn't need to be loaded until we need it, like either going into the game or into the multiverse, or if we have like, we probably won't be in the multiverse. We'll probably have like a separate area for mod content that's like just for mods. So yeah, let's write down some of this stuff. So like new game screen, right? Needs to be able to add mod decks to the available lists, hero, villain, environment. There'll be like an atlas, use dynamic sprite atlas for mod new game screen items. Yeah, and be able to select them, I guess, but that's sort of all implied there. Game view. Since all the assembly registration stuff is like static, that can happen like once at launch, or like say maybe you download a mod while the game's running, then it could do it then. It doesn't need to do it like every time you play a game or whatever. It can just do that once, unless, well, yeah, I think there might be a performance issue if you have like 1,000 mods or something, but we can cross that bridge when we come to it, or optimize it a little better. So game view itself needs to like, this is where the meat and potatoes is, right? There's like small card. I guess there's sort of a loading screen. I guess it's like just in time loading of mod resources, right? So like whether in game view or a deck browser, load the images / etc. needed for a mod deck when they are needed, and unload them after. So that's something that like the game view would lean on that, or like the mod list browser, whatever, could lean on as well. But so just sort of general things this needs to support at minimum is like small cards, full cards, mainly that those two things. I guess there's like environment backgrounds, music, cutouts, which is like character graphics. That's pretty big. Those are the main things. New game screen also needs to be able to show full cards when you right click. So that's like, can walk through that a little bit. So go in here. So like when we launch the game, I wanted to like be able to load the mods even before you get here, like at the very start, unless it like takes a long time. We'll probably have like another screen, which is like a mods screen where you can see what mods you have installed and like maybe download new ones, or I don't know what, but at least see what you have installed. And they won't be in the multiverse, but they'll be a modiverse or whatever, like where you can see the decks you've got installed. On the new game screen, like any mod content will be visible in the list here, clearly shown as a mod deck, and you can right click cards to look at them. You can, same thing here as environments, you can drag and drop them. So those will work all exactly the same is the idea. So all these graphics are like built into the game, right? Like this Freedom Tower sprite is coming from this, which is built into the game. Like that's all set up already. So the game needs to, when it comes into this screen, like process your mods, but probably it doesn't need to, like, it only needs to update. It could like save that file, maybe. It needs to create an atlas dynamically, even more dynamically, right? Because, well, I guess I could just use textures, but like that's not great. But so whether it's an atlas or whatever, like it needs to show those things. Could be a long scroll when the cauldron decks get in. Well, yeah. And we could potentially be able to filter them here to maybe by like just have a mods button here or something. Or maybe we need to expand this screen because it's already like, a lot already with all the multiverse stuff. So, yeah, there's things to consider there. So coming in here, you need to, be able to load those graphics. I mean, like the first thing that we'll do is just do it without graphics, right? Like be able to load the mods and show them in the list. Like that's sort of the first thing. So like the first thing is just like show available mod decks and allow them to be selected. Start new game with mod content. Because we can get it working before we need to have graphics, right? So we also want to show graphics for mod decks and show graphics on full mod cards. Yeah. So that's kind of and then the mod format specification at least needs to be like started, because otherwise it's just sort of like you need something, right? So yeah, so I think there's still a couple engine things here, but the next sort of main thing I want to be looking at is starting on getting the UI, being able to load the mods. So I think this way, I'll look at what other games do. I don't know if anyone has any suggestions, but I think like just having it automatically look for files in a folder, and if they're there, then like load them up, is probably the easiest thing to do versus like try to pass in command line parameters or have some sort of like hidden screen that you can go to do stuff. Just like if you've got mods in this sort of pre-alpha stage, then like you can try to load them. Is I think the next thing to look at there. And that can basically be done, like we can do this in stages, right? Like it can start with just load it up, check the DLL, register the assembly, spit out an error if that fails, probably invisibly or whatever, into the log so people can see what's going on if they're developing their mod. And that sort of gets the information loaded so we can then start getting the new game screen to support it. Once the new game screen supports it, then the game view can support it. So we need sort of these steps. So I think that's the next steps in the development here. So that's cool. The documentation is sort of a thing alongside that I'm going to talk to Jean-Marc and David about getting started on that now that we're in a place where people can actually start programming. There's more value to having that documentation be moving now. So would it be possible to add a toggle button at the top of the selection screen to hide or show mod collections? Yeah, that was what I was talking about. There's a Dex interface here that we could add like mod toggle or something into there. So and then there's another new screen that's more about like we have the expansion pack screen and we have the multiverse screen, but sort of probably some sort of combination of those ideas to like list what mods you have installed. Like if you go to Slay the Spire, there's a screen to like list all the mods you have installed and like configure them and stuff like that. So something like that. There's also like for Steam Workshop specifically, you have to provide a way for people to upload their mods, and probably like it can just be part of the game. It could be a separate like command line utility or something, but probably we'll just make it part of the game and have it in that screen, have a sub screen that's like upload my mod or something like that. So that's my thought so far anyway, is to basically like install your mod as an ad hoc mod, and then there's a button to like upload it from there. So anyways, we'll see. Cool. So I guess I could probably do a few more things today. It's only 5. But I wanted to talk through all that as well. Could look at a couple of these things that are smaller. Yeah, I'm not sure. See what the numbers are on our sample. Oh, still 3 and 1. That's okay. Yeah, hopefully this is useful. And if you have any questions about it, you know what? I should put links in here too, right? For more information, please visit the Trello board. Get these things all linking to each other, right? That's important. I have too many. I don't want all these tabs. Too many tabs. Cool. Nice. Okay, so yeah, pretty happy about that. Yeah. Why don't we just do this part? I was thinking that might be easy. Let's do a little easy little make work task. Let's open the engine. I'm sure I won't break everything. I want to rename all of these .text files to .json. So I just click on every one and click that, right? I don't think so. Let's do it a better way. So Visual Studio will freak out when I do this, but then I'll just edit the CS project, I think. Let's go to the engine. Let's make sure we have the latest code. Deck lists. All right. There is actually, I think, in Finder, does it have a way to rename a bunch of files at once? It does. I'm sure. I was going to do it in the console, or in terminal, but it's like, oh yeah, I think Finder can do that now. That's easy. But now when I open the solution, it's going to be like, oh no, what have you done? My files. If it opens. This is the other project. Everything is red. Because it doesn't just pull up whatever files are in there, it has reference to all the files. So we just need to open this in a text editor and replace every .text with .json, and it should be happy then. Hey, hey, look at all that beautiful text formatting. And then nothing's gonna work at all because it's gonna be like, hey, I can't find the text file. Look at all the failures we're gonna get. It's gonna be glorious. Just gonna like crash because it's, yeah, too many failures. It's like, oh my goodness, there's so many failures. Did you set blah blah blah? Error. Yeah, okay, we're okay. There's probably like one place where it uses TXT. Oh, extreme Captain Cosmic. Oh no. Well, here, deck definition is where. It's always .json now. Now are we happy? It ran all the tests lickety-split because they failed immediately. running tests and things are working now. Okay, I don't need to run every test. You can stop now. Anytime now. Oh, did I start it again? Getting the bad... oh, right. Because it went to... I don't know. Buttons. Clicking buttons. Okay. That's all fine. We renamed those files. I think we're happy with that. Rename .text files to .json to make us happy. That seems good. Done. I did want to, I think, support namespaces being more than just one character, and that's basically just fixing this right here. So instead of just taking the first and the last, we want to take all but the last and join them back together. You can do split.join and put the period back. So the space is going to be split.take count -1. Like that. The last part is the identifier, and the first part may include multiple dots is the namespace. All right, and we have to say join with dots. Right? Isn't that a thing? Dot. Oh, it's like string dot join, isn't it? Yeah, that's what it is. String dot join. And we have to give it the dot back first. And that needs to be a literal array. Oh, we can actually just say only take one less. So we can. It's interesting. Oh, we can do that. I guess we could do split.toArray 0, and the number of elements is split.count -1. Cool. And I think we also have similar code in mod helper. Yeah. I wonder if we make a helper function here to just make like make it super consistent. Get namespace for turn taker. And we'll also send out the identifier. No, we have an extra. And I guess we could just like always use that. Could be a cleaner way to do it instead of then this code doesn't need to know anything. It just like asks the mod helper like, hey, what's the assembly and the namespace? So this like basically does this. Space. So it's like takes the identifier of the namespace, splits it on period, takes the first bunch of it and as the namespace and last is the identifier. So let's just take this and put it in here. Oops. How do I bugbear open? Mod helper dot. Can I like do that? Seems a bit cheeky. Get the namespace and overwrite the identifier. I mean, that seems okay. I think it's okay that, like, this is the place that knows this because, like, this is the only place that's using that. Like, the only place that's loading that deck list is right here. Isn't the controller... The controller's not... There's a turn taker, the factory or whatever, right? But that's like... Let's look up the card controller factory. Can't remember what we did there. Right. Basically, we try to load it from Handelabra, and if that fails, we go to the mod helper. So that's okay. But basically, like, we're not doing this split code in two places now. It's in one place, which is nice. Oh, it's in here. It's up here too. Right, so we can just call this get namespace for turn taker. You can just say string identifier. And we can like maybe do a little air checking. Sure. Quick and dirty earlier. Still quick and dirty, but it's a little less. And we can... Actually, we can just use this. You can use try get value. It's actually slightly better than the other way. This should actually see result equals get assembly for namespace. Make use of the other function we just wrote. That seems fine. This could like check, but I think we're calling it safely probably. Yeah, okay. That seems okay. Let's run some tests here and make sure that we didn't break everything doing that. Command Control B, make sure we build all. Cool. All right, so possible I broke the mod support by doing this, so we can double check that by going to the Unity editor. Yeah, so let's build in release, which copies it over to the Unity UI. And that built, so then we should recompile here. Yeah. And we can just check that our game still loads with our migrant coder. It's not actually testing that it works with extra dots, but it's testing that I didn't break how it works so far. So we can do this, and that all loaded up okay. So let's just really test it. Let's go to my mod, and we can say our namespace is actually my mod.workshopping. Sure. I'll probably revert this because I don't know that I like it. We need to change our default namespace as well. Okay. And then when we run the... Oh, right. Yeah, this is all going to fail, but that's okay. I'm loading the DLL like directly in here. It's going to fail to load our deck because we changed the namespace. Yeah. Engine error, blah, blah, blah. Could not find. So let's go to Sentinels because we're telling it the wrong namespace. And we'll tell it my mod.workshopping. And that just lets people use whatever, if they want to use multi-part namespaces, they can. As that'll be whatever the next Sentinels update will support that. Could not load. I did not like that. Assembly my mod could not find, so it didn't like that. If we go into the engine and just like have it print out something, it was the deck definition it didn't like. It didn't find the assembly for the turn taker. What's the issue? Let's just throw this in. See if the logic is right or if I screwed it up. Namespace, workshopping, identifier, migrant coder. Well, that's not right. Let's just make sure we're sending in original string. Sending in what we expect. Possible that that's not right. Oh, it says namespace. Oh, you know what? I think my other thing is I didn't change everything. I changed this but I didn't change this. Gotta do the whole thing. If you're gonna do it all the way. Oh, it all worked. I don't know why that extra debug string didn't come. Anyways, we got the namespace part, the identifier part, and everything is good. It seems happy. So that logic is okay. A fine move. All right, so let's go back to the engine and clean up that log. Maybe I just didn't hit the build button right or whatever. Anyways, we're happy with that. That seems to do the right thing. There. So those will work for the next update. So yeah, basically what we're doing here is support names, mod namespaces that have spaces in them. E.g. mymod.workshopping, not just workshopping. And a bit of error checking. Just a bit. Cool. I think that I know people will probably want that. So like if you're doing many mods, you might want to like my name dot whatever this expansion is, and then or my name dot whatever the other expansion is, like you might want to separate those out just logically. So that is done for next update. I wonder how many things use this toArray method. A lot, but they could just use like the link version. So instead of the FACO version. Cool. So the loading thing is probably a bit more. That's something I want to talk to David and Jean-Marc about because we need to like probably record the namespace in the model, and that's a bit more involved, and want to make sure that we're all happy with how that is done. So might do that at some point before next week, or might do that on next week's stream. We'll see. But it's probably going to be it for today. So the next thing we'll get started in on next week is actually getting starting looking at this mod format specification. We can start getting that written down and organized, and have the game start loading mods from the UI. Sort of, if it launches, it can look for them and load them up, as well as getting probably engine documentation is going to be the higher priority. That resource documentation is good, but like you don't have a deck if you don't have code. So you got to start there. Cool. So yeah, those are things that we're gonna do. But yeah, lots of good progress, even in this limited time that we're able to devote to it. So we're pretty happy about that. So take a look at the GitHub. I will throw another link to that. Yeah, and actually the changes I just made in the here, I'm just going to discard these because they're just changing the namespace for no reason. And I don't want that. I don't know. Just doesn't seem... I don't know. Maybe it's fine. Anyways, that's going to be it. I'll link the GitHub in the Twitch chat again, but you can find that on the Trello, which is linked from as many places as we can find. And of course, this links back to the Trello. But check it out. Feel free to ask questions in the Discord, and we'll be, carrying on with making mods happen. We're pretty excited about. Yeah, there's lots of people who have been already started programming and are getting into it, and that's really cool. So we will talk to you next time. Oh, quick question from Frenzy. If I make some custom content that works fine by itself, someone else's content doesn't play nice with it, like Guys, would be able to mod Guys' interaction with it. I'm not sure. Probably it would be more of a thing that, like, if there's a bug happening between like Handelabra's code and your code, and it's clear that it's a bug in our code, then you can like talk to us about it and we can try to fix it. If it's like another mod author, then you would need to work together on that. So generally we're probably not going to like prioritize weird stuff. Like, if that makes any sense. Like, we're not going to like be able to devote a significant amount of time to, like, if you wanted to make a character that works like Guys but on more things, we're not going to be able to support that, like, or give you development time from us, right? Like, that's just not going to be feasible. But if it's like, you know, there's clearly a bug happening that's like a general bug that your mod happened to reveal, then that's more clear that, like, yeah, we need to fix that. Does that make sense? So, like, we'll try to, like, it has to be reasonable, basically. So, because we can't spend like all of our days working on this. We have to keep it reasonable because we have other projects and other games going on as well. So yeah, I guess that's going to be it for the stream today. Thanks everyone for tuning in, or if you're watching on YouTube. Getting one-shots to work for your misguided fool is on you. Yeah. Yeah, gotta eat and have a happy Halloween. Make some spooky mods and so on. I'm really looking forward to see what people start coming up with, and you know, now that you're able to actually run the code and play with it in the console and unit testing framework. So, and yeah, we're looking forward to providing more docs and examples to help out, especially we'll make it a lot easier to get going. Thanks for watching. Yeah, thanks Trident and Fusuke, and we'll see you next time. Bye.